Check one, check two. Check one, check two. See, check on my streaming health. Hope everybody's having a great. What is today? Thursday? Yeah. Hope everybody's having a great Thursday. Just decided to come on real quick. What is up, Helmet? I saw your comment on the on the 60 plus. What's up, Ty? Glad y'all can make it. So y'all can see the thumbnail. It's all good, Helmet. Catch the replay. I appreciate it. So we're gonna go over an article. One of my favorite running backs, Clinton Portis, in a fraud scheme. yeah, but the sextortion. It's crazy. It was 16,000 complaints, and a third of those were over 60. All good. But yeah, so I did a video on sextortion. There were 16,000 complaints to the FBI, and a third of those were 60 plus people getting blackmailed because they sent new pictures or somebody sent them a fake spam saying that they got their new pictures. So I was surprised a third of people over 60 was wrapped up into that. So I was kind of perplexed for that. So once again, Clinton Portis fraud scheme. We're gonna go over the article real quick. Then, from a cybersecurity perspective, as you can see from that fraud scheme, we're gonna delve into fraud and insider information. All right, so they have some inside information to kind of pull us off. So let's look at the article. If anybody got any questions, just shoot them in the chat. Old people stop sending nudes. Old people stop sending nudes for the sextortion issue we were having. So let's, like I said, let's bring up the article. It's kind of a shame too. Clinton Portis, two-time, I think he was a two-time rushing champion, and two other former NFL players pleaded guilty in a multi-million-dollar healthcare fraud scheme. So you would think somebody, and we're gonna get an article. I think he made $40 million over the time when he was in the NFL, but he still, ended up broke. Right. So it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you save. So let's kind of go over this article, then we'll delve down into the cybersecurity components. So two-time Pro Bowler, running back Clinton Portis, and two other NFL players have pleaded guilty for their roles in the nation healthcare benefit fraud scheme to submit false claims to pay out totaling of about $3 million, the Justice Department said. So one of the first things we're going to delve into is when you get into fraud and other issues is once you start trying to steal $3 million in a healthcare scheme, that amount of money is going to ring some bells, set up some alarms, and make you start doing some investigation, right? Especially if it's a certain amount of people, right? You need to, dollar amount is one of the first thing that triggers insider trading attack or a fraud attack. At a client would like you to touch on a virtual machine at some point in the virtual life. Oh yeah, you want to talk about virtual machines, VMs, virtual clients, and AWS has virtual clients, and Azure has virtual clients. So I'll do a live on that and set up a live date for virtual machines and virtual clients. Portis, Tamarick, Vancouver, and Robert McCune admitted to participating in a scheme to scam the league's retirees healthcare benefit plan, which provides tax-free reimbursements to former players and their families for out-of-pocket medical expenses that are not covered by the insurance. The insurance department said. So you're an NFL player, you've been grinding, you got medical injuries now. Because when you talk about the NFL, you talk about big guys running each other. So you always gonna have elements, and a lot of those guys were getting CTEs in the old days when they let you just jack them up. Was one of the NFL things where players would just come across the middle and linebackers were just blowing up in the head, flipping them over, right? So then the NFL try to help those guys. Prosecutors said McCune, who played 8 games in 4 NFL seasons, was the mastermind. McCune orchestrated a nationwide fraud, which resulted in approximately $2.9 million in false and fraudulent claims being submitted to the plan, and the plan paying out approximately $2.5 million of those claims between 2017 and 2018. The Justice Department said. So the big issue from our standpoint, right? We sad people went broke. We know people are greedy, but is the fraud part of that. So a lot of people don't realize in cybersecurity, once you get to the top part, once you get your program, once you set up, once you get your zero trust, once you get your admins, once you get STIG, once you get all that, the next phase of that is all that could work, but if somebody's gonna commit fraud against your system, right, they're gonna exfiltrate data or steal data, right? When you're stealing money, you exfiltrating data out of the system in the form of money, right? So part of cybersecurity, a lot of people don't realize that's coming to the forefront now is privacy and fraud, right? I'm my private data and fraud. How do I stop my company from becoming defrauded? Right, a cybersecurity fraud is part of that. Stopping cybersecurity fraud is a module of that, and how do you stop that from happening against your system? Right. And peace, thanks. Some people are greedy. I said facts, man. It's sad. I don't even know if it's. Yeah, I guess I would say it's greedy. I guess when you make 40 mil and you become broke, man, now you're just trying to survive, right? Because you got used to that high life. You got used to living on. I don't even know what that's a month. What, 3 grand, 3 million a month? So 12 to 36, yeah, about 3.5 million a month. You start getting that a month, and now you're zero, right? That's the one thing about athletics. You at the top, you 12. Then when you 28, you unemployed, and you don't have that type of skills to continue to make that type of money, right? It's an excuse for those guys, but you get trapped into that type of lifestyle. Up to date, 15 former players have pleaded guilty to charges related to the schemes, the prosecutor says. McCune 40 pleaded guilty to several charges on August 24th. The former linebacker who is on the roster for Baltimore, Miami, and Washington was sentenced on November 19th. McCune faces a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and health fraud. 10 years for each count of the health fraud, 20 years for each count of wire fraud, and 2 years for each count of aggravated identity theft. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is aggravated identity theft. And I like you took the person's wallet, but it was aggravated. All right. So they figured out how to defraud the system. So you, as a cybersecurity person, is how do you implement a fraud program in your company? How do you make sure your end users look for insiders? The reason I say insiders a lot of time is people on the inside tell people how to commit those type of crimes for a kickback. All right. From a healthcare perspective is what things are they searching for? What dollar limit should I go for? Uh, what things are so common that it won't raise bells, right? So those are kind of things when you have insider information, it helps you commit fraud obviously better, right? Because those guys are kind of system. Portis 40 and Vancouver 47 pleaded guilty Friday to conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud and agreed to pay full restitutions to the health plan. So I guess to try to get out of jail, right? They're gonna try to pay full restitution and pay all the money back. Portis reportedly earned more than $43.1 million over a 9-year career with Denver and Washington. He was known for wearing colorful costumes, wig, and oversized glasses in media interviews. But after retiring with nearly 10,000 rushing yards, he filed for bankruptcy and became one for starting a number of former NFL players who go broke after playing in their career. Right. So once again, he filed for bankruptcy and became one of the starting number of former NFL players who go broke after playing in their careers. Right. So if ESPN did a documentary on go for broke or broke, where it said I think it said 80% of the NFL players were broke after 4 years of getting out of the NFL. Can live practice self-taught with VMs count towards experience? Yeah, it depends on how you word it, but you can count that as experience. If you building VMs, creating VMs, are you gonna do automation to create the VMs, or are you gonna manually create the VMs? And two is just to make sure it would be for that. I would join a group or open source project and help those guys actually create their test bed environment. So when you say VMs, are you the standard VMs? So yeah, you can count that towards experience. McCune, who spent 5 years as a kick returner and a wide receiver with Kansas City and one with San Diego, is scheduled to be sentenced on June 22nd. They each face a penalty of 10 years in prison. Right, so him and Clinton Portis and him, who are not the mastermind, right? They could get up to 10 years in prison, which is crazy. So you threw your life, all your money away to be in prison. What's up, Keep It Techie? We just talked about Clinton Portis at a high level. He did a healthcare scheme. I'm going over an article. So Clinton Portis, who made $43 million, did a healthcare scheme. He's facing 10 years of prison. According to the Justice Department new release, Portis in Vancouver pleaded guilty to 2 days after the trial against them, resulting in a hung jury and a mistrial on certain counts against Vancouver. A retrial charge against Portis Vancouver has been scheduled to begin on Tuesday. McCune and the third defendant pleading guilty to all charges against him on the second day of the trial. Mr. Vancouver accepted responsibility in the case and will face whatever punishment the court imposes on him. He's ready to get the order behind and deal with his own health issues and moving on with his life. Right. So now you was the big guy in the NFL. Now you declare bankruptcy. But once again, from a cybersecurity perspective and fraud, you talking about taking people to court and prosecuting for that, right? Of course, this is HIPAA. A lot of people do Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare, and health fraud, not at the tune of $3 million, all right? So it's the dollar amount, right, that's really sticking, all right? So you was in a league, you made $43 million. So now you let this dude get you in a scheme, right? So part of cybersecurity, once again, is, and we're going to talk about this at the end and sprinkle in areas. Once you get everything set up, once you get your VMs, your Linux, your AWS, your Zero Trust, it's fraud. You can have the best system on the planet, but if people let them steal $3 million out of your system, right, how really good is your security program, right? So I work in a place, and I probably have him on my channel, is we actually have a fraud department. We have a guy over fraud and how they figure out fraud and make sure people don't steal money out of the system. So let's look at how the scheme was, perpetrated. So how the scheme allegedly worked. The scheme, which lasted from June 2017 to December 2018, led to over 3.9 million in false and fraudulent claims, and which the plan paid out $3.4 million, prosecutors said. So I guess they tried to get $3.9 million, but out of the 3.9 they try to get, they got $3.4 million of that, right? So, and that's when I always put fraud or insider trading, because a lot of times people on the inside tell you how to work the system, tell you what things you should apply for, tell you the dollar amounts you shouldn't go over, so you won't show up on people's report. Right. So, Gene Upshaw, the NFL player health reimbursement account plan, was established as part of the 2006 collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and the NFL Players Association. According to the indictment, the players submitted phony claims for expensive equipment, including hyperbaric oxygen chambers, ultrasound machines designed for doctor's office to conduct women health exams, electromagnetic therapy devices for horses. The claims were for about $40,000 to $50,000 each, right? So when you put in medical claims for $40,000 and $50,000 each, that's going to show up in somebody's fraud department, right? So if you're doing medical claims or taking this kind of money, or you see PayPal and Cash App, when you do certain type of fees or dollar amounts, right, that stuff gets capped. They don't let you do a certain amount, especially if you haven't done it before, if you don't know the person, right? So all that behind the scenes is them trying to use, you know, fraud to catch people. Yeah, keep it taking. That's crazy, man. You trying to get ultrasound machines, hyperbaric chambers, and you talking about claims for $40,000 and $50,000 each. They relied on fabricated invoice, prescriptions, and letter of medical necessity, the prosecutor said. In addition, some defendants recruited other retired players to participate in the scheme in exchange for kickback bribes that ranged from anywhere from a few $1,000s to $10,000 or more, the prosecutor said, per claim. So right after, I can only do so many claims, but if I get X players, I'm cool with, like, let me put this, $10,000 claim in, or I give you 3,000, I keep seven. Right. So, that's how they be doing in the hood. We're gonna commit a crime and we're gonna split it. But I guess the crazy part about all of this is these were professional football players. The league minimum, I think even in the 80s, a friend of mine played a professional bit. I think it was $350,000 in the 90s and 2000. All right. The health insurance company Cigna flagged the anomalies in the types of claims being filed and referred to the fraud to the federal investigation. Then Assistant General Attorney Brian Buzkowski said, so when you start stealing 40, $50,000, $60,000 in a claim, that's going to get reported to the state general attorney, right? That's on a whole nother level of fraud. And now, right, you're in the crosshairs of the United States government. That's how, yeah, that sounds like how the mob was making money. That's true, man. So they did kind of put that together as a mastermind. But once again, the sad part is these dudes made millions of dollars in the NFL. You wouldn't think they would need to resort to, stealing money through medical claims, right? So from a cybersecurity, we're going to walk through insider attack. That's one of the most um, in the early 2000s, for me, insider attack was the biggest thing I worried about in cybersecurity. Over the last 5 years, though, with nation states in China, Russia, the mob, so many insider attacks. So I think nation states surpass insider attacks. But we're going to roll it back. Insider attacks for me is why they're dangerous is they know how your system works. Right. So if you got testers testing your system, right, they know all the holes, they know all the vulnerabilities. They actually see the security team putting tickets in to fix stuff and testing. Right. We do secure testing. We're going to do fuzz testing. We're going to do SQL injection testing. We're going to do red team testing. We're going to make sure that all the patches are up to date. If the patches are a couple versions behind, we're going to try to see if we can break those vulnerabilities, right? So we're going to do all those type of tests so the insiders know everything that we broke, how we broke it, and what we need to fix, right? That's insider from a security team perspective, right? And I worked on a system before my current client. we were working on a general ledger system, and she basically said, "Oh yeah, if you go to the back end, she actually showed you how to do a fraudulent payback for the system for they call them CIPs. If you owe the customer money, right, or you messed up, you would give the customer a voucher or a refund." So she basically showed how she could put her name in a refund and have the refund still to her, sent to her, right? Because she understands the inside working of the system, right? So she knew how to break those type of barriers of what type of checks we wasn't doing, right? She said, "Well, I can change the check and send the check to the bank." We're like, "Oh no, we need to have her change the check and somebody validate that check, right? We need to break that business process up into two separate functions, right?" But once again, when you're an insider, you know those particular shortcomings of the system, right? So when you talk about testing, right, there's functionality, there's security, but then there's business process tests that goes with that. How do you can you defraud a system? Can you write your check? Right? Those are business processes. Those aren't technical checks. Those aren't um, security checks. That's not like I said, fuzz checking, sickle injection. Right? All that's really business fraud checking, which is this whole separate business entity. Right? So if you look up LexisNexis, a lot of them use those for checks. So like some of my clients says, for like they said for those HIPAA checks, it would say this person lives in Ohio, right? So LexisNexis says, okay, this person's got a medical reimbursement for $50,000. Okay, the first check is, does that reimbursement holds true for that type of equipment? Right. I used to do HIPAA work. Oh my God, almost 25 years ago. So we had a process that would go through and check that type of stuff. Right. So you get in a barrack chamber, what's the retail value of that? The retail value for it is 30, but you asking for 60,000, right? Those two don't match up, right? That would be a red flag. Right? Why is the markup on this machine? So I should be 30 retail. It should be between 30 and 33, between 27 and 33. But you asked for 60,000, right? That's a cybersecurity fraud check on the back end. All right. Okay. This machine came from this vendor, right? There's so much AI you can do with fraud. Now I can say this vendor doesn't even sell this type of machine, right? As a fraud check. This you asking for a barrack chamber from this thing, right? They only sell oxygen tanks. So how are they getting this machine from that client, right? So that's the fraud part once again in cybersecurity, right? The VLAN setup, all that stuff up. Now we're talking about business processes on the back end. What do you do to secure your software on the back end from fraud? Obviously, these guys found I say a slight hole for a short time. But then once again, as most people said, my man said before he left, they got greedy. If they would have just did regular medical claims for a regular dollar amount, some under $10,000, they probably would have never been caught, right? When you start doing, I think he said one of them was 50 or 60,000. Once you start doing those big dollar amounts, of course, that's where the fraud department is going to come in. It's going to ring up and say, "Hey, that number doesn't make sense," right? Especially is when you start ringing numbers up like that, they're going to check it out. I'm sure they got a high value team. We did, and when I did healthcare, there was a certain department that looked for number one high earning income people. Two is this was the NFL, so they had their special plan, right? It reimbursed them everything for out of pocket expenses. Most plans don't do that, right? Everybody's doing high deductible now. You pay up till you get to a certain point, then you get reimbursed, but you don't come out the gate unless you got a surgery or something for 40 or 50,000. And two is that was for equipment. That equipment belonged in the doctor's office. you buy ultrasound machines. I mean, some of that stuff you got to be certified to actually be able to run, right? So that'd be one of the fraud checks is you ordering this machine, you ordering an X-ray machine or ultrasound machine. Are you qualified to even run it, right? That'd be one of the security checks is you bought a machine. Where's your certification, your diploma to say, are you even qualified to run this machine? Right? So a lot of times not we, but people get greedy, right? Then they set themselves up for fraud, right? Because one of the clients I work for, one of the fraud checks is, where do you live? How much money do you make? There's a ton of fraud things. Is too is when you use those fraud companies, they know where you lived 5 years ago. They know what your job was 3 or 4 years ago. So then they start asking you to answer those questions. And if you're not, right, you're gonna come up on a fraud report. Right. And the basic one everybody's familiar of is if you go buy a $10,000 car in cash, you're gonna end up on an FBI report, right? That's a fraud check. Most people don't spend $10,000 in cash on anything. So if you drop $10,000 on cash, I promise you, you're gonna end up on somebody's desk in somebody's local FBI department to come start looking at you and running some stuff on your name. It could be legitimate, right? But you are going to end up on somebody's report because, like those guys, it's cybersecurity, fraud, and insider, right? So that's part of the fraud program. So let's talk about building a fraud program. So once you get your system created, you get all your stuff validated. Hopefully you got your blue team and your red team to sign off on it. Let's see, Ty, I build VMs for offensive security. Cool. So are you trying to get your VM building certified or are you trying to get your offensive security certified? Not certified, but you're trying to get the sign off that you have experience on the VM part or on the offensive security or both of those. So everybody's familiar with the $10,000. If you spend $10,000 in cash, right, you're going to end up a report. That's fraud. Then when you're talking about building a program, once again, your systems are good. Your blue team's good. Your red team's good. From the government, we call it ATO. You get a third authority to operate. You get a third party come in. Let's say you're a decent sized company. You get Deloitte to come in, one of the big vendors to come in, just give you a once-over, right? You got policies and procedures. You got DR, you got business continuity, you got STIGs, you got MFA. They go through your system. They said your system's good, right? So now it's time. Let's go up to fraud, right? We stop in script kiddies. We stop in low-level, mid-level ransomware teams. We got that solved. We got our virus protection. We got our ransomware. We got our Akamai. So if we get denial of services attack, we can block them. Shout out to Black Heights. What's up, brother? I'm catching you live. All good. I'm glad you joined us. We're just doing a quick one. I don't know if you see the article. Clinton Portis made $43 million over his career. He just got arrested for healthcare scam. He scammed about, I want to say, $3 to $5 million in healthcare. So we talking about the fraud department on the back end for the cybersecurity. Once you get all your good stuff in there. Oh, so now once you get your department built up, you got you got your blue team, red team, you got your authority operate. So one of the big vendors came and checked you out. So now we're gonna look at fraud. So fraud is basically like they did. The system was good. They just tricked the system into giving them payments that they didn't deserve, right? Payments they didn't, like I said, they didn't deserve. And basically they just stole them, right? They just stole them. So that's when your fraud department come in. So when you do, like I said, when you spend $10,000, you come on an FBI report. When you go into the hospital and you do, like they were doing, you asking for a certain amount of money for certain procedures, they're gonna say is, does that make sense for your age? Does that make sense for that dollar amount? Does that make sense for your region? Right? You can have a kid have diabetes, right? And you start asking for a big sum. A kid can have diabetes, but if you start asking for $1 million, right, they're going to come out and verify that that's correct for a kid that age, right? So the insurance is going to do that, right? The hospital is just going to have to validate that that's true, right? Because the insurance company is reimbursing the hospital, so the fraud is going to be on the insurance company, right? So the insurance company, when Clinton Portis them stole that amount of money, right? They're going to say, hey, we got to validate that. Hey, we got artificial intelligence. We can run that stuff through to come check them out, right? So that's part of it. So, real quick, if y'all not a member of Keep It Techie or Black Heights, go subscribe to those two dudes. They have great channels doing great work, and I definitely support those two guys. And shout out to Keep It Techie. He definitely shared his platform, and me and Black Heights are going to do something here shortly. So, I only got 500, so I'm sure most of my subscribers came from both of those two dudes. But if you're not subscribed to those two dudes, go check them out. PBO signs off on those guys, so make that happen. So, but once again, we talking about cybersecurity fraud. It's a small part of cybersecurity. Most people don't even think about fraud being part of cybersecurity. If you go out there and Google it, that's a separate thing, a separate department. But I think once again with privacy in the next 5 years, I think it's going to be huge. Privacy's it's going to be the next bag. Why? States are setting their own privacy up. If you're in a multinational company, I'm actually having a multinational company. When you do GDPR, Europe, South Africa, and Africa, they all have different privacy settings, right? And the privacy goes to what type of fraud are you trying to protect from, right? And so if somebody steals data or defrauds a company, who do you report to? Does it have to be a certain dollar amount? Do you have to turn it around? Do you have to offer them credit monitoring? In the United States, but when you're a multinational company, right, as Black Heights would say, trying to get that global bag, I'm gonna call it the global bag. Now that's on a whole nother, area when you're dealing with multinational companies, because now it's just not like United States law, California, which rides with GDPR. Now you're talking about different global laws from around the world for that particular company. And like I said, I just kind of wanted to touch on that just a little bit. Once I saw this article, I was kind of a little disappointed. Like I said, shout out Clinton Portis, one of my favorite running backs. I know he declared bankruptcy a couple of years, but not probably 5 years ago. But then for him to kind of go the route of stealing, that kind of touched my heart a little bit. Let me know if anybody had any questions. Like I said, I just kind of touching on this article. It just kind of piqued my interest from the fraud scheme. Dudes spending $43 million in their life and not saving any. Then once again, a lot of people miss out on the cybersecurity fraud and the insider. Todd, let me know if you're talking about the offensive security or the VM you're trying to figure out on that. So the two tails, I guess, on this, and Black Heights talked about that on his channel, is you have to get your retirement together. Use your money to have multiple streams of income, multiple ways to make a living, multiple ways, I guess, to survive in this world. You would think if you had $43 million, you had enough seed capital and investment capital to go. Black Heights was shouting out real estate. I know Keep It Techie, he young, he be messing around with that Bitcoin. I'm too old for that Bitcoin, man. I see a lot of my young brothers on the Bitcoin. I'm checking it out. I'm kind of old, though. I'm an old dog, man. I do stocks, bonds, a little real estate. Maybe a little options. That's about as risky I'm getting them. So I'm trying to ease into there with that Bitcoin. That's a young man's game, but they talking me into it. But so I just to see guys at that level with that type of wealth, with generational wealth, especially Clinton Portis. Once again, I think he made 43.1 million over his 10 years in the NFL. And like we talked about, ESPN's got that 30 for 30 going broke, and I think 80% of the NFL became broke in 4 years. I think they're doing a better job. Once again, they're putting in classes to help guys. Guys are going back to school. Older guys that actually went broke are talking to those guys and telling them to, get their act together. So I came to this space and I met guys. I'll keep it techie, Black Heights, Tech G, Kenny Conjo. There's too many guys. My job is to help young guys get into IT, make a difference, make a good living, right, and support those guys. So that's why I came to this industry, and I was surprised, pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of guys out there helping. There's a lot of guys leading guys, giving them great advice, giving them great coaching, right? Shout out to Black Heights. I always tell them, I talk to guys and I always tell them, hey, go check out Black Heights, man. This is my perspective on it. He's in the level. He's actually a certified coach. I'm not a certified coach. I can give you some of my 35 years, but my man's got a good price. Take what I want and go balance it off what he got. And at the price he gives, that's going to help everybody, survive. And keep it techie. I talk with some guys with my Linux or he's got DBA skills. So I tell him, go check out my man, keep it techie. I know he's getting his class ready. So as soon as he gets his class done, I'm going to start sending people to his class. So I came here to help people. And when I seen dudes doing their thing at a high level, there's no need for me to step on people's toes. Black Heights is a certified coach. I'm going to give you some advice, and I'm going to send people his way. Keep it techie. He's going to have this killer class. He's a Unix expert. He's DBA, so I know he's going to be top up. I'm going to send people his way. Tech G, there's so many people out here at Sub-Zero with the Oracle. So guys I check out and I respect, I don't need to do that. I don't need to replicate what these guys are doing great work. I can send people their way, right? I don't need to make all the money, right? So I'm going to send people their way for their expertise. Because I don't want to see people ending up like Clinton Portis and these guys stealing money unnecessarily. Now those guys they could get 10 years Fed time for that, right? Because HIPAA doesn't play. I don't like HIPAA as a security compliance, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. And I've talked about my issues with HIPAA being a CyberSecurity implementation. I think it's crap. That's why hospitals are getting ransomware and they're getting killed, and they don't have the proper fraud attack. And and I always joke, and I joke with Kenny Conjo and them, is if I could probably steal $100 million in my basement just chilling, man, because some of these companies are so weak. But I'm not trying to do Fed time. I'm old and fat. I ain't trying to go no Fed prison. I don't think I'm gonna live that life. So that's it. I just wanted to touch on Clinton Portis, cybersecurity fraud, just a little bit. Just some from pop culture thing I just want to do. It just, I don't know, seeing that dude probably go to prison for 10 years just kind of hurt my heart a little bit. So I just want to come live on it real quick. That's all I got. If nobody's got any questions, Black Heights, I'll check my email so we can set up some next week. What's looking at CUS? Well, are you familiar with that? It's weird. I actually am. I'm actually going to have an expert on my channel. He's actually on a multinational company. He's going to actually talk about that. I'm looking into that because I think the next certification is crazy. I think it's going to be that for privacy, because I think privacy is going to be the next bag. B-Dub, so that's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually going to do a live stream on that, B-Dub, and I'm going to do that soon because a lot of people aren't hip to the privacy certifications. And if you actually Google privacy in Amazon and Google, they were paying those guys, mid-level guys, $300,000 if you could do a multinational program for them. So that's quite. B-Dub, are you looking into that? The CIP in the U.S. because there's like 3 privacy certifications you can get. I got this guy. I was actually at the Central Indiana Cybersecurity privacy meeting, and he actually did a speech on that. So I'm actually going to bring him on my channel, B-Dub, to talk about the privacy. I think that's as Black Heights would say, that's a unknown big bag. That's an unknown big bag. Yeah, B-Dub, I'm looking into that. To be honest with you, do you do privacy for a living? Yeah, I'm curious too. Like I said, I'm gonna bring that guy on my channel. He's CISO for a multinational company. I think he's Scottish. He has a unique accent, and we're supposed to meet and chop it up a little bit. So I'm gonna get him on my channel to talk about privacy. Once again, I think that's a big bag people are not aware of. And the cool thing about that, not cool thing about it, is we talked and um, he wants me to come go on his channel and actually do NIST and STIG video, and I told him I would if he come on my channel and talk about privacy. The weird thing about that is you got to talk a little bit about law, a lot about multinational, and the crazy thing about that is you don't even touch a computer; it's all paperwork. That's the crazy part about that, B-Dub. And that's as I get older, I touch computers less, and I do a ton of paperwork because I do federal compliance at that level, and federal compliance has a piece of privacy in it, not at the level of the SIP in the U.S. And like I said, he had 3 more certs, but I'm actually bringing him on my channel. Facts keep it techie. I see you. I think that's all I got today, fellas. I just want to come in short. Like I said, that kind of hurt my feelings. Clinton Portis, cybersecurity perspective. Gotta watch them insiders and fraud. Your your infrastructure could be tight, but if you got somewhere where somebody can write a check out of your system to yourself, does all that security really matter? Right. So we got to make sure we tie a bow around security. And B-Dub, B-Dub, I do a lot of law. I talk to lawyers once a week, B-Dub. I don't know if I love law. I'm actually going to have a lawyer coming on my channel. His specialty actually was compliance. I do a lot of compliance, and most of those chief of compliance guys, of course, are attorneys. So I'm going to bring that because I think that's another bag where people don't think about compliance. And you really don't even touch computer. That's all paperwork you delegate from a compliance. I actually want to take compliance with privacy and do federal compliance at the level of AWS, Azure, and Google, right? Because that's what they need at that 300,000 level. Because all those are multinational. If you slip up as a multinational company, I think Google got sued for $300 million by the EU. So they need people to make sure they're tight from that perspective. So I mean, so that's very interesting. You brought that up, B-Dub, and I'm actually writing that down right now to get that guy to talk about privacy on my channel. Like I said, that is a super rare bag on that. I like law. My best friend is a lawyer, B-Dub, so we argue legally. I actually had her on my channel. We were talking about red team. If you actually got somebody, this is for Ty. Ty actually accidentally got somebody hacked because he was actually doing a red team event. Could that company personally sue him? Even though I signed off for you to attack my company, I didn't sign off for you to having a hacker jump on your network and jump on mine, which would make you be negligent. Not Ty will do that. I know Ty coming up. So I actually had a lawyer on my channel. If you go back and look, we were chopping it up about that. So yeah, I'm actually going to have a couple lawyers on. I got a compliance director coming on. I got a privacy director coming on. And I got a federal director coming on. And they all lawyers. Right. So I guess I'm having a legal channel. I'm going to have to get my man, the lead attorney, to come on. No, I'm just joking. Shout out to him. I went on his channel. He was helping small sites on his channel. So that's all I got today, fellas. Shoot me email if y'all want me to touch a subject. Ty got you down. I'm going to talk about VM, VDI, virtual desktop from that, and Citrix. So those are the 3 things from remote, offsite, desktop, VMware, how that stuff will look and how that stuff would actually work. And I'm actually going to do that in an AWS setting. We'll talk about an AWS setting. I don't know if I'm going to spin up anything specific for that, which I hope to start doing. But that's all I got, fellas. I just wanted to throw that out. A little sad, Clinton Portis, I think, going to jail. At least I think the most he can get 10. He probably get 3 or 4. They probably give him 5. He get out 3 in a good behavior. That's all I got. I'm glad everybody came out. Hit me up, ProfessorBlackOps at gmail.com if you want me to hit a certain subject. Shout out to the Keep It Techie, Black Heights for coming out. Ty's always here. That's my man. Helmet. I know he's at a client's shop. And I'm just laughing. I did a video on sextortion, and a third of the 16,000 people that responded to FBI for sextortion was above 60 years old. So me and Helmet was joking. We're telling the old people, stop taking pictures of yourself so you won't end up in the FBI office trying to get blackmail. I need the old people to shut it down. I'm one of those old people. I'm 50. We got to shut that down. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for coming out. Hit me up. I'm sure I'm going to be on y'all channel, Professor Black Ops. Have a great day. I can see the weekend. I'll check you out.